read the books. I enjoy reading the books. If you enjoy reading the books, please read the books. But mostly this is just for, they're really nice colors.
It's pretty.
They're really pretty. This pretty purple one, the Vimalakirti Sutra, translated by Burton Watson, is the translation that is usually recommended, and Thich Nhat Hanh uses his translation. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Bodhisattva Path, commentary on the Vimalakirti Nirdesa, and the Ugra Paraprecha Sutras, which is a beautiful little book. And I am going to call a lot on Joan Sutherland's commentary, Vimalakirti and the Awakened Heart, a commentary on the sutra that Vimalakirti speaks. She brings forward the term endarkenment, which I am grateful and fascinated by. Joan is in Robert Aiken's lineage, my understanding. So Joan Sutherland describes this early Mahayana Sutra as a myth about how we navigate the dream of this life. She says it's about developing a peaceful and generous heart in a world of sorrows, and how awakening is an inextricable part of the awakening of the world. Thich Nhat Hanh says it's like a play. And as I mentioned on Tuesday, it has a similar feeling to the Lotus Sutra. It's like, how do you make these teachings public? How do you bring them forward? So of course you put on a play. You're not in a monastery and you're not studying this stuff and you're not reading all of this. You just, it's like Shakespeare, you put on a play. That's how you teach what's going on. It was composed 2,000 years ago in central India and then translated mostly many times, but Kumarajiva in the 406, and that's what Bertrand Russell has. Because it's one of the pivot sutras from traditional Buddhism that was largely the Theravadan, which was and still is largely monastic. Mahayana sprung forth with the renewed intention, with the belief that it was Buddha's intention that this practice be readily available to everyone, that anyone can practice. It's not just for monastics. Joan Sutherland mentions that it's also, the sutra is also called the reconciliation of dualities. Thich Nhat Hanh often mentions the absolute and the relative. There's other words for it that I can't remember at this moment. Maybe you will. We think, oh, there's this world, and then there's the world of emptiness, or the world of vast timelessness. And the teaching always is, it's like two hands together. It's like bowing. It's simultaneous. You can't separate them out, but of course we do, because we have human minds, and that's what we do, and that's how we separate. I mean, that's how we define the world. So I can see that tree out there because it's over there. I'm here, but that tree and I are so intimately interconnected. We can't even begin to imagine or know. But Zazen. I'll keep coming back to one of my most favorite koans. What is Zazen? Abjiro says it's non-Zazen. What is Zazen? What is non-Zazen? What is no Zazen? It's alive. Just keep entering and giving ourselves to a lie over and over and over. And Vimalakirti, I mean, the paradox is that Vimalakirti's sick. He's in a sick bed, for goodness sakes. You'd think if you were gonna have this great teacher be alive, it'd be like this or that, it's like, but no, this is teaching us, get over your ideas about good and bad here. So let me I'll read again what Joan Sutherland has to say about endarkenment. The thread we're following through the sutra is an early version of what we call endarkenment now, though the sutra never uses that word. In broad strokes, enlightenment is about the brilliant illumination that lifts us out of the suffering world and is the focus of classical Buddhist literature. Endarkenment is about the radiance of the deep that lets us find home in the world. Endarkenment is the heart that breaks open to life, rests comfortably on the unfathomable mystery of existence, and is easy with uncertainty, complexity, and what forces underground. Enlightenment and endarkenment are both essential to awakening, and Vimalakirti is one of the earliest voices for including the dark, an inclusion that makes awakening whole. So a little more reviewing again. So this is scene one. We can think of this as scene one. So where we enter is Joan Sutherland gives a kind of little entry blurb at the very beginning of this, which she and Thich Nhat Hanh both call this scene, this chapter, the Pure Land. Hakawan says, this very place is paradise. This very body is Buddha. So we begin in this really beautiful place. It's a park, it's a mango grove, it's lovely, it's fragrant, it's abundant. We're told that just lots of little paradoxes in here is that it was loaned to him by a courtesan. This holy man and this holy thing that's happening is a grove that's there because of a very worldly person doing a very worldly trade, so to speak. Although I would also say, I just read, this is my own little commentary, that just is something that said, stop calling Stormy Daniels a porn star. She's actually a philanthropist. She's done a lot of good in the world. She has a much bigger life than that includes that. So please, let's always keep looking at how we're dividing things up here. We're always more than we think we or somebody else is. But that's just one example of back then is here. It's like this has been going on forever and ever. This is our work to wake up in. So it's this park and finite in size. And then we're told that there are 8,000 bhikkhus and 32,000 bodhisattvas there. We're often told this in these extravagant Mahayana sutras. Well, think about if you took even the smallest place of earth and how many bugs and cells, and I mean, everything is kind of like that if you really look at it. If you move in and you move out and you think, well, it's just this, but it's the sun and the moon and the stars, is every place includes and is a multitude. So it keeps asking us to stretch our minds and our hearts about what's really going on here. So this is one of my most favorite parts so far, but I'm sure there will be others, and hopefully you will find some too. So they're all sitting there in this great, beautiful place. And as the custom, Buddha takes questions from the assembly, and Shariputra comes forward. He's one of the main disciples. He's supposed to be the wisest. In the Heart Sutra, he's the one who Avalokiteshvara addresses. So it's interesting in this one. You can enter it through many gates. One is Shariputra just asking, as Joan Sutherland says, asking these questions to make things more grounded and accessible, or as Thich Nhat Hanh suggests, these early sutras, Mahayana sutras, often set up the lesser vehicle against the greater vehicle, and they're just setting Shariputra up as a fall guy. Always ask the question, what's going on here? I know that you really don't know, that anything you come up with is probably just a nice idea, and then keep asking the question. So, Shariputra says to the Buddha, when the Buddha has been giving teachings, that this world and this existence is the Pure Land. And then Shariputra says, but I don't experience it that way. I experience this world as full of pain and suffering and horror and ugliness. Kind of like calls the Buddha on it. Hey, it's a nice idea, but let's get real here. And in response, what the Buddha doesn't argue, doesn't try to convince anybody, is he enacts something, which is, this is a play, this is poetic, this is metaphor, and he comes down off his seat. He's probably the Buddha, he's sitting on some higher enlightenment seat, or at least we think he is. And he comes down and he digs his toes into the earth. Isn't that beautiful? I think that's really beautiful. And then I was early Buddhism, the Buddha was always in the very beginning, was never depicted as a person. It was his footsteps that were depicted. So there's something primary and important here about the earth. The Buddha touched the earth. He woke up under a Bodhi tree. Buddha gets down and he digs his toes into the earth. And when he does that, the world suddenly is filled with, or is revealed, it becomes jewel-like. It's filled with jewels, and Shariputra is able to see it as a pure land. I can look outside and I don't have to stretch so far to see the jewel pure land. Now, of course, if we go down into Oakland in a homeless camp or into a war zone, that's going to ask us to look a little more deeply. It doesn't mean to skip it. It's what's really going on here. So, from a high seat, comes down to the earth, enlightenment, endarkenment, and then there is a shift in perception, and the world is revealed in a different kind of way. So that's the first scene. Now we're still sort of in that, but we're going to move to scene 2 in a minute. So the Buddha somehow knows that Vimalakirti is nearby, and he wants to send a messenger. He knows that Vimalakirti is sick, and he wants to send a messenger to offer his respects and condolences. John Sutherland says, maybe the Buddha wants his disciples to experience turning towards the world rather than away, and to open the heart of awakening. He wants to send his disciples to somebody who's sick. Let's just not sit here in this wonderful, easy grove. And the great thing is they all say, oh, no, I don't think that's a good idea. And so he asks his 500 disciples and all the bodhisattvas to go, and they all decline. They've been in the room with Vimalakirti alone, and they find that he's too disturbing. I don't want to go in that room with that dude. So I don't want to get carried away here, but I actually would, because I think some of these stories are great. Or at least I do. I hope maybe you will too. Shariputra says, oh Lord, I do not have the capacity to visit that gentleman. There was a time when I was practicing sitting meditation at the foot of a tree, and Vimalakirti came along, and he talked about how one practices Mahayana meditation, comparing it to Shravaka meditation. His conclusion was that the way I was practicing was incorrect. And then he goes on to understand, with the Buddha's help, that he was sitting in a way where he had gaining mind. He was trying to attain some special state of mind. And Vimalakirti said, no, I think you're missing the point here. Let's see. Meditation is not to transcend the desire, form, and formless realms. That is not the highest meditation. Just stay with practice. That is meditation. Nothing cool. Okay, some more. The Venerable Madugliani. I also can't go. One day when I was teaching the Dharma, Vimalakirti came along and said, that is not the right way to teach the Dharma. Vimalakirti seems to have a few things to say about things. According to him, the nature of the Dharma is the absolute truth, and we cannot use words or concepts to explain it. He said that I was using notions and verbal expression, and therefore the Dharma I was teaching was not the right idea. So in other words, you might want to work on how you're teaching, because you still seem to be a little caught in teaching this and that and words and concepts. Vimalakirti says the Dharma is not the idea of, it's not sullied by the idea of a living being. It does not have the idea of a separate self, does not have the idea of a lifespan, does not have the idea of a human being of before or after. You abide in reality without being disturbed by the pairs of opposites. It's in harmony with emptiness. It transcends ideas of right or wrong, not caught in concepts and notions. And then what happens is when he said that, when Vimalakirti revealed that, everybody around became really happy. They became full of joy and compassion. So there's something about the way that Vimalakirti is teaching that isn't dividing things up and making things contentious. It's like he's pointing through to the truth, and everybody kind of knows it. So everybody's heart is light and brightened. And I would imagine, because these are deep practitioners, is that they also would be grateful of, oh, somebody's trying to help. The Venerable Kashyapa. When the Venerable Mahakashyapa was practicing the alms rounds in a village of poor people, monks go around with your begging bowl, and that's how you eat. Vimalakirti came up to him. Vimalakirti's everywhere. Vimalakirti's on all of our shoulders. And Vimalakirti, according to the spirit of equality, and said, Venerable Kashyapa, according to the spirit of equality, you should not seek alms from every house you pass. You should seek alms from every house you pass. You should not pass by the houses of the rich and only stop at the houses of the poor. It is not in order to eat that you make the alms rounds. So one might say, well, he was just going to the poor and not to the rich. But it's like, don't discriminate. When you go out asking people to be generous and to help, there's no giver, no receiver, no gift. Stop discriminating about whose house you're going to. This is the bowl of the Tathagata that is held in my hands. I vow to be able to realize the emptiness of giver, receiver, and gift. Some of us know that one. It's part of the Zen meal chant. A couple more. Can you take a couple more? Okay. Oh, good. Sorry. The Venerable Subhuti. It's his turn. Buddha says to Subhuti, would you go? Oh, no. Let's see. Oh, so what happened is that one day when he was making the alms round in the affluent quarter of Vasali, Subhuti had come to stand in front of the house of Vimalakirti to request alms, and he walked into a nest of fire ants. And after Vimalakirti had taken hold of Subhuti's bowl and placed rice and curry on it, then he went on to tell him something helpful, and basically said, all phenomena are equal. When you do this, you should be able to see the equal nature of all phenomena. And then Thich Nhat Hanh says, in reading this section of this sutra, the principle of non-duality is clearly evident over and over again. Stop discriminating. Watch your mind. Of course, there's fire ants. But you know, if you're going to get all flitzed out by fire ants and think something's good and something's bad, you're just going to keep suffering. Just be aware of that. Sorry to be discerning here. When you give a talk, don't make the teaching small. Don't think that the person you're talking to doesn't have the capacity. I mean, of course, use skillful means, but don't dumb down the Dharma just to think that's all somebody's capable of. It's just something. And oh, the last one. Sorry. Rahula, who's the Buddha's son. Buddha said to his son, would you please go do it? What do you think Rahula says? He told the Buddha why he could not go and inquire after Vimalakirti's health. On one occasion, a large gathering of young people came to where I was, and they said, Venerable Rahula, you are the son of the world-honored one, and you renounced becoming a wheel-turning king in order to become a monk. What are the advantages and the benefits of becoming a monk? And then while I was explaining the advantages and merits of leaving home, Vimalakirti came along. And he said, you should not talk about the advantages and merit that come from a monastic life, because the monastic life is precisely to leave behind advantages and merits. What do you think you're puffing yourself up here a little bit? When you become a monk, you no longer see the difference between leaving the family and staying in the family. So you want to just keep leaving this behind. It is enough for you to give rise to the mind of the highest enlightenment, like to want to wake up with and for all beings, because that is the essence of leaving home. And when they heard this, all of the young people who heard this got really happy because they understood and were able to penetrate the teachings in a whole different way. And then, of course, there was Ananda, but then all the bodhisattvas, you'd think the bodhisattvas, for goodness sake, is like, oh yeah, well, we got it. We're going to go talk. No, but they didn't like that either. They had a lot of different ideas about that. And let's see if there's one short story here I marked, but maybe not. About generosity. Like, don't discriminate, discern that you think one person's more worthy of giving you something than another. Okay, you get the idea, right? Vimalakirti is, he's really something. Okay, so now we're going into, I think, chapter 2. Maybe that was chapter 2, maybe this is chapter 3. But finally, Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom and insight, says, oh, John Sutherland says, maybe Manjushri being the Bodhisattva of wisdom, and Vimalakirti, who's known as the Bodhisattva of compassion, which is interesting in itself. That Vimalakirti's compassion isn't nice. Vimalakirti's compassion is to help people see through so that we can embody the deepest truth and interconnection. She says, maybe this is creating a bridge that is who finally goes. And so all 32,000 people go to see Vimalakirti. Now, somehow Vimalakirti knows they're coming. This is all, there's a lot. Knowing beyond time and space. And so what does he do? He empties his entire estate. And when they all get there, all they see is Vimalakirti in a 10 by 10 room on a sick bed. So they've gone from lush and abundance and comfort, and it's just this sick guy in an empty room. Joan suggests maybe they're going from fixed ideas of purity to uncomfortable questions, and Vimalakirti presenting life as it is. No, I like it here in my comfortable room. We all know that, right? Okay, so then Shariputra comes forward, brave dumb guy that he is, and he says, the room is completely empty. There are no chairs for anyone to sit on. Someone notes in the commentary that he overlooks the mystery that somehow 32,000 beings have fit into this small room. But Shariputra is really worried about the chairs. I mean, how often do we do that one?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to fixate on this one, but somehow I miss the whole mystery of exactly where I am. And Vimalakirti answers. Let me ask you, did you come for the way, or are you looking for some place to sit and get comfortable, a relief from your suffering? Vimalakirti is essentially saying, you have to give up everything to seek the way, including the Buddhist teachings, including wondering where your chair is. And then Vimalakirti goes through all the Buddhist teachings, all that are completely established in that day. We've seen this someplace else too. Maybe it was in the one we just studied. Is like the Four Noble Truths, the idea of nirvana, the triple treasures, the refuges, goes through all of them and says, no, 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 no. It's like whatever you think is a fixed idea, keep looking. Give it all up and don't put anything in front of alive. You have to be willing to give up your body and your life and your seat. For this time, which you'll see what I marked. If the way is something other than the teachings about the way, you can let fall away all the things you think the way is, or want to be, or have been led to expect it is. You accept the condition of seatlessness. You accept the condition of seatlessness and stand on the bare ground. When you do that, what walks towards you? That's the way. That mystery which cannot be expressed or explained or anticipated, which until the moment it appears is by its nature unimaginable to you. The way is the willingness to seek that and nothing short. But Vimalakirti is also a householder, sensitive to the needs of his guests. And so he contacts a Buddha in another realm, and then he orders, just to make sure that you think that the Buddha and Vimalakirti aren't nice guys or whatever. And he orders 32,000 large lion thrones for the use and comfort of his visitors. So all of a sudden, this whole room, not only do you have seats, but you have lion thrones. And now everyone has a place to sit. The Sutra remarks that despite the tens of thousands of visitors on their individual thrones, Vimalakirti's house isn't deformed by this. Can you imagine if we had all these lion thrones and suddenly the minister walked by and it was all bulging and glowing? Like, what's going on in there? Of course, it is sort of happy because we're so cool, but anyway. No. Vimalakirti's house isn't deformed by this, nor is the block on which the house sits, nor is the sitting. There's no cartoon image of the exterior of the house rocking on its foundation, bulging with bodhisattvas. This seems like a small but telling detail, indicating that this isn't a practice about display or having lots of precious things we do and special ways we do them. We are the modest room that can contain 32,000 lion thrones, and anybody walking by on the street wouldn't. Each of us in our ordinary householder's life is that room with all its beauty, richness, despair, difficulty, tragedy, and crime going on inside. Oh, teacher, can you read that one? Yeah, because then I'm going to ask you to talk about it. We are the modest room, each one of us, inside, outside, inside, are the modest room that can contain 32,000 lion thrones. And anybody walking by on the street would. Everybody's a Buddha. Everybody's a Buddha. The whole world is a Jesus. Each of us in our ordinary householder's life is that room, with all its beauty, richness, despair, difficulty, tragedy, and triumph going on. Okay, so we're in paradox. You can't put this together in any way. You're in the realm of myth and play and poetry and metaphor and fairy tales, and it's probably good that Erica's granddaughter showed up with a teddy bear and a cat. And this, we're going to play in this because it seems like that's sort of what's happening in this. There's a very deep and profound teaching, but we're also being asked to use our imagination. So let's get together in groups of 3. Mix yourselves up. How can you both be a modest person and contain infinite jewels and lion thrones? How can you just be just this person with all the beauty, richness, despair, difficulty, tragedy, and triumph going on inside? What is that? Or anything else you want to talk about? Okay.